we have roughly 1 crore medical professionals in this country. 75% of these individuals get attacked at least once in their professional life.
What strikes out about the Kolkata case is lack of safety for medical professionals as well as lack of safety for women in our country.
85% of nurses are females, because if they start feeling insecure or not safe in hospital wards, our entire medical infrastructure can potentially collapse.
The CM of Bengal, Mamata Banerjee, the PM of our country, Narendra Modi ji, the Health Minister of our country, JP Nadda ji. We need some reforms to the safety of medical professionals in our country.
Today, already 25 states have some law that if you attack a doctor, you will be prosecuted. But not one individual has been prosecuted till date.
Does the general Indian public even think that violence towards doctors is okay?
In India, we take our family members to the hospital only when there is an emergency. Patient is getting angry or abusing the medical professional out of their extra emotion, their anxiety, and we try to tell the doctor to play God. When doctors are not gods, they are human beings. The doctor can't do anything. If the disease is at an advanced stage, my hope is that there should also be some laws around the amount of hours worked by medical professionals. Number 3 is stipend. Today, 70% of medical interns do not get paid.
There are certain upsides to being a doctor in terms of it's probably the most fulfilling job in the world.
Boss Ranveer, nobody wakes up at 3 a.m. every day to do a delivery for money. They do it because they care and they are compassionate souls. When is content coming out to celebrate these medical professionals for the work they do, the lives they save? Thank you, honestly, from the bottom of my heart, for taking this issue up on your podcast. It shows that you are trying to make an impact on our community in the positive way towards medical professionals.
I feel it's the job of the media to highlight what traditional media, news media is not highlighting. This is only the first piece that we're creating with regard to the Kolkata rape and murder case. I genuinely believe that more content creators need to show up and speak about this case from multiple angles. Of course, it's a very shameful day in the history of independent India. I feel ashamed being an Indian man and having to see how the mindset of Indian women in our country is filled with fear, is filled with anger after this kind of a situation. There's a lot more podcasts we'll make related to this case. I've asked some extremely powerful podcast guests about this case. You're going to see this in the upcoming few episodes. What I wish to say in today's episode is that it's mainly for every single medical professional in our country. It's a shame that doctors and medical professionals as well have to live with a sense of fear. Generally speaking, even before this case happened, 75% of Indian doctors have encountered some form of physical violence or some form of physical threat over the course of their own careers. And it's about time that we speak up for them. Abhijeet Kaji runs Knya, a business that's associated with providing top quality medical gear to medical professionals. He's someone who's had a voice on social media for the last 2 years. He's spoken immensely about violence and a lack of justice when it comes to violence against medical professionals. He's going to expand on the same topics with regard to the Kolkata rape and murder case. This is a very important and also very powerful episode of TRS. I hope you gain value from it and I hope we grow as a country together. August 2024, and for me, this is probably the most important conversation of the year, just based on everything that's happening in the country. Abhijeet Kaji, welcome to today's episode. We could have done this episode with doctors themselves. Personally, I feel it's very important to showcase someone like you who's spoken about atrocities committed against medical professionals for the last 2 to 3 years. You've been creating content related to it.
Absolutely.
Could you give us a quick professional introduction about yourself before we start talking in today's episode?
So I'm Abhijeet Kaji. Thank you, Ranveer, for having me. I'm the co-founder of a brand called Knya. We're a brand for medical scrubs and aprons, but primarily the essence of the brand is to celebrate medical professions in this country. We believe that medical professionals haven't been getting their due. They aren't treated well. They aren't respected well. There's violence against them. So our brand is focused to make them feel better about themselves, like how we've seen some brands do for athletes, like what Nike does for athletes. We feel we want to do the same, but for medical professionals in India.
Gotcha. We spent days prepping for this particular episode today. I honestly don't know where to begin, other than maybe with some stats. While the Kolkata rape and murder case is brutal in so many ways, we'll break down that case a little bit. We'll break down the reforms that should be coming through. We'll break down what possible laws should be coming through. I'd love for you to begin by highlighting some stats for us. So, when it comes to medical professionals, especially in our country, what do you have to share with Indian audiences?
Sure. So today we have, Ranveer, roughly 1 crore medical professionals in this country. Broadly around 15 lakh doctors out of this. The balance would be nurses, technicians, other ancillary staff members, midwives, the likes, right? It's important to realize that out of these 1 crore medical professionals, 75% of these individuals get attacked at least once in their professional life. Let that sink in. 75%. The life expectancy of a doctor in India today is 59 versus the life expectancy of non-doctor Indians is 71. There are 65% of doctors in India today are females and 85% of nurses are females. So it tells you how important women are to our medical ecosystem. Their safety, their security is of paramount importance, because if they start feeling insecure or not safe in hospital wards, which is what is happening today, our entire medical infrastructure can potentially collapse.
Yeah, I think what strikes out about the Kolkata case is this lack of safety for medical professionals as well as lack of safety for women in our country in a government medical college. You know, when we speak about a rape case, sometimes, you know, if it happens in an obscure location, that's what the general public would occasionally highlight about the case, that, oh, it happened in this place outside the city. This happened right in the middle of the city in a government medical college. Also, as we speak, I think it's 20th August, murkier details about the case are coming through. I'm also going to go on record and say that right after our podcast, we had another podcast scheduled, which was with some of the doctors from the Kolkata Medical College, the RG Kar Government Medical College. They backed out yesterday. They called us up and said that we're getting threat calls to not be on the show. This is the truth of what's happening in our country. This situation is way murkier than what we initially thought it was, and it was extremely murky to begin with. So, should we begin by talking about the case?
Sure. So I think what happened in Kolkata is something that is horrific, right? I think today the conscience of the entire country is shaken. The entire nation has basically been brought to its knees, right? Not just medical professionals, not just women. I am a father of a young daughter, right? Today, I am not sure that I want my daughter to potentially pursue medicine. I'm scared. Ranveer, I'm scared, right? If this can happen in Kolkata, in a government college, this can happen anywhere, right? But before, it's important to realize what a doctor goes through, right, to reach this place. I'll just tell you in a second, right? Roughly 25 lakh. So before this, right? Doctor banna Ram ke vanvas ke barabar hai, right? 25 lakh people give the NEET UG examination. 25 lakh. Out of which roughly 1 lakh people get an MBBS seat, 50,000 in government colleges, 50,000 in private colleges. After 4.5 years of MBBS, they'll do a year of internship. After a year of internship, they will give the NEET PG examination. A very difficult examination, which again only has 64,000 seats. If you're lucky, you get in and become a resident. After 3 years of residency, you will do a rural bond. 3 years. After that, you will do a super specialty. After that, you will basically start practicing and having a thriving practice. Now, let's put that aside here to tell you what it takes to become a doctor, right? Now, what has happened in the Kolkata case is something that we all need to step back and say that what is going to happen after this? Yes, we all are protesting, doctors on the streets, you and I are disappointed. As a father, I'm crying. What is going to happen after this? Are we going to get justice? Sure, hopefully we will get justice. The poor girl and her family will get justice. And my only hope and prayers is that. But after that, what will happen? We've seen the infamous Nirbhaya case. What happened after that? And I'll tell you, A very similar incident happened in New York in 1989, where a pathologist, Dr. Catherine, was brutally murdered in New York's Bellevue Hospital. Very similar case. Uncanny how similar it is. But what happened after this will blow your mind. It changed the way hospital security was in the US forever. The mayor of the city made it a single priority, not just to bring justice, but to change how hospital security and surveillance would take place in New York hospitals forever. My hope and prayers is that this incident is a change, brings a reform in India and in Indian hospitals. So today doctors can feel safe while providing care and being selfless souls that they are.
Yeah. I have so much to say about what you just said, but I'd also like to genuinely address the CM of Bengal, Mamata Banerjee, the PM of our country, Narendra Modi ji, and the health minister of our country, JP Nadda ji. I feel this is such an important moment in our nation's post-independence history that the biggest political figures in the country need to step in. I believe the Supreme Court, as we speak, has taken up the case this morning. But we need some reforms, especially when it comes to rape laws, but also especially when it comes to the safety of medical professionals in our country. There's a lot that's going wrong in the space of healthcare in general. A friend of mine, Amin, he runs a podcast called Untriggered. He had someone called Abha Singh on the show a few days ago. She's a female rights activist and a lawyer. She basically highlighted the condition that our country's hospitals are conducting themselves in. For example, let's just take this case. Why was the doctor choosing to take a nap in a seminar hall versus taking a nap in an actual assigned area like, some kind of a sleeping room, what's called a restroom, which is different from a washroom. I believe that when it comes to hospitals abroad, there are these assigned areas for doctors to sleep in. It's probably thought of as a concept because of cases like this. Would you like to say anything about?
No, there are a couple of things, right? I think you're spot on. I'll tell you this, right? So as the co-founder of Knya, I feel it's my duty to understand how medical professions functions, not being a doctor myself.
Sure.
So every month, I visit a government medical college across the country, right? To speak to doctors, to speak to nurses, to understand what their lives are like. How can we make better products, better scrubs for them? And every single time I go to a government medical college, and there hasn't been one exception. I need to go to the washroom, of course, for the 3-4 hour visit that I am. And honestly, Ranveer, I am embarrassed. I'm embarrassed of the hygiene of these hospitals. You cannot go and urinate in these bathrooms. I can't even imagine what these doctors go through by spending 24 to 36 hours in these hospitals. They live there. A resident by definition means they are residents of the hospitals. It's not practical for them to go to the hostel every time they want to take a 15-minute snooze, right? They need restrooms. That's number one. Second, which is very critical, the quality of food and their mess facilities, almost non-existent. So yes, doctors are telling other people that please eat healthy, but they themselves don't have the opportunity to either rest or eat healthy. And third, and the most critical thing, today, you can walk into a government medical hospital without anybody asking you who you are or why you're there. You can walk into a ward, you can walk into an OPD, and nobody will ask you why you're there. There is no form of security or surveillance in any of these government institutes. So today, yes, rest is very critical, but we're not able to even provide them security. Same thing happened in the Kolkata case. The young woman just went to a seminar room, which was not even a resting room, to rest. But there was no security there to even help her. And her body was found a couple of hours after. Right? So to tell you, this poor infrastructure that we have in these government colleges is taking us back and really making it difficult for the smartest minds of our country to perform better.
Yeah, something that's really messed up, not just about the case, but this is a generalized statement, is that when you speak to a lot of young doctors, they'll say things like, dude, I wouldn't want my kids to become a doctor. Where's this thought coming from? And I think this thought is probably accelerated because of this situation now. But do you hear people saying things like this?
100%. This is the absolute truth. My godparents are doctors. None of their kids are doctors. I talked to them. I was like, any of your friends who are doctors, are they doctors? They are not doctors. I talk to doctors. I interact with probably 2,000-3,000 doctors on a daily basis. Right? At Knya, we interact with them. And often I ask them, yes, I'll tell you, today if you pick those same doctors, they will pick becoming a doctor any day of the week, even though these hardships are there. Because at core, they're not doing this for the money, they're not doing this for the fame. They're doing this because they're saving lives. They're taking care of patients. They're alleviating them of pain. Boss Ranveer, nobody wakes up at 3 a.m. every day to do a delivery for money. They do it because they care and they are compassionate souls. But do they want their family members and their daughters and their sons to go through this? It's a big question mark. Mm-hmm. And I think today, not just in India, right? I think what we are seeing is a massive brain drain. Quick statistic here again. In the United States, 26% of doctors are from immigrant families. Largest percentage of this 26% is from which country? India. Indian doctors are leaving India. They do not want to pursue medicine here because of these difficult hardships. So the time has come for us to take care of our doctors better, our nurses better, provide them respect, provide them basic laws, better infrastructure. Because if we do not provide this care to these doctors, there could be a world in India where there may not be any doctors. And so we will not have less doctors, we'll have almost no doctors.
Yeah. Again, highlighting what Abha ma'am said on that podcast, she said something like, once a situation like a rape and or murder happens, you'll see a lot of people blaming the government, and then you'll see their naysayers saying, hey, what does the government have to do with this? But she said that the government should actually be held accountable because the actual problems, even if you just highlight this case, lie with the system, lie with the bureaucrats in charge of the hospital. The kind of timings that the hospital operates on, the restroom situation, the washroom situation, the security situation, just how these interns and resident doctors in hospitals are managed. It's a very high stress environment. You'll always hear your friends. I don't know, do you have friends who are also medical professionals?
Yes, of course.
The unfortunate truth is, bro, you're running a successful business. I'm running a successful business. They're still studying. Mm-hmm. What is up with this long-term studying aspect of a doctor's life? I mean, this might be a slightly amateurish statement, but is there any way we can shorten the length of study for a medical career so that they can start their private practice early? I don't know. Is this just...
It's a great question, right? And I think today, when, as I mentioned, right, it takes roughly 14-15 years to have a thriving practice in medicine. And yes, you're right. So is it longer? But I'll tell you, in the West, it's even longer than India, right? But before that, I'll just tell you, before I answer that question, right? Today, when an IIT bags a 1 crore salary, the whole country is rejoicing them. Oh, they got a 1 crore salary in Google, at some tech company, at some startup. But boss, when a doctor charges 700 rupees in an OPD and spends 5 minutes to tell you the diagnosis, bhai 5 minute liye unhone 700 rupiya le liya. Ye kaise fair hai? Boss, what kind? Then we are not being fair to our individuals. They have not taken 5 minutes to give you a diagnosis. They spend 15 years to study to give you the diagnosis. It is their experience. And more often than not, we are not giving them the chance to give them the right diagnosis. Right? One more thing I'll tell you. There are enough laws with regard to the number of hours a pilot can fly, the number of hours of sleep they require to fly a plane. Is there any law that tells you that a doctor should sleep these many hours or work these many hours? Let's not forget, these doctors are spending 36 hours in a hospital and more often than not conducting surgery with such limited sleep. These are life and death situations. So when you talk about laws, I think there are many laws around this. Finally, the Central Protection Act. This was an act which was brought in the government, the parliament, in 2022 to shunned for whatever reason, the political reasons are. But I, as a citizen of this country, demand for this law to come back. Today, already 25 states have some law that if you attack a doctor, you will be prosecuted. But not one individual has been prosecuted till date. You're talking about Kolkata. Last week in Sion, there was a doctor that was attacked. A drunken individual at the OPD attacked a doctor. This is a case of a daily occurrence. If we do not have a law and we do not enforce this law, how can we expect our doctors to feel safe? Imagine 50% of doctors fear violence by the Indian Medical Association. How can they do the most difficult surgery and provide the best care if they are fearful? Many often, if I was a doctor, I would probably say that, maybe I shouldn't do this surgery because maybe I'll get attacked after that. We're creating the wrong incentives, the wrong environments for the best care. Eventually, it's citizens like us who will suffer.
How these attacks started in the first place? Like, why do doctors get attacked? I've never understood that.
Great question.
I'm assuming that hospitals and medical facilities are extremely emotional environments where you're on the edge. Anyone who's entered an emergency ward at any point knows how kind of tense that environment is. Obviously, because of everyone coming in, etc., and people's real characters come out. This is what I've gained from my one visit to an emergency ward. Now, I am assuming that this also brings out the worst in human beings. Now, there's a long-term narrative in our country of being a little skeptical when it comes to medical professionals ki, oh, ye to hamara paisa chura rahe hai. That's one narrative. I'm from a doctor's family, so I know the truth.
Of course.
Like, from the inside, doctors are totally, wholly concerned with the healing of their patient. That's all they speak about, even at home, to their kids who are not medical professionals.
Yeah.
That's the truth of being a doctor. So why does the general Indian public even think that violence towards doctors is okay?
So I'll tell you, right, when a patient's family misses a heartbeat, the doctor's actually missing 2 or 3 heartbeats because that's how caring they are, right? But to answer your question on kind of why does violence occur, there are a couple of reasons, right? One is, Ranveer, in India per se, we take our family members to the hospital only when there is an emergency. Today, these hospitals have become not centers of healthcare. They become centers of sick care. They are not preventive in nature. We are being reactive, not proactive. So when there is an unfortunate disease or something, an extreme case, that is when we go to the hospital and we try to tell the doctor to play God. When doctors are not gods, they are human beings. Doctors cannot do magic. More often than not, what happens is a patient's family or a patient is getting angry or abusing the medical professional out of their extra emotion, their anxiety, but they are just blaming the messenger. The doctor can't do anything if the disease is at an advanced stage. That's number one. Second is, it's been spoken about a lot in the media. Yes, there are less doctors. An average resident can meet and cater to almost 250 patients in an OPD. 250. The patient load is crazy. So yes, even when they have to share a diagnosis and be compassionate and be empathetic, they sometimes don't have the time to do that. And yes, maybe they could spend more time communicating with the patient, but because there are less medical professionals, there are less doctors, they don't get that opportunity. That's number 2. Number 3 is which I spoke about earlier as well. There is no security. There's absolutely no security there. So anybody can enter and attack. And fourth, and I think you and I and all of us are also responsible for this, is that today the media, today content, today movies, today TV shows, they're demonizing doctors. There is only more negative content around maligning doctors, medical malpractice, doctors charging too much money. When are we going to bring the glory to medical professionals? We spoke about Olympians. Rightfully so. They deserve it. We spoke about army veterans. Rightfully so. When is content coming out to celebrate these medical professionals for the work they do, the lives they save? A doctor recently saved the life of a young baby on a flight. When was that spoken about? When will we glorify these doctors? And because we see these negative contents, we feel it's okay for us to speak negatively about doctors. And it's okay for us to disrespect them publicly. So I think we all are a little bit responsible for this change.
How do the doctors that you speak to on a daily basis feel about this Kolkata case?
One word, anger. There is so much anger. There is so much disappointment. There is this sense of, when will we get our due? When will we get our due? Yes, doctors are becoming doctors because they want to thrive in their career, and rightfully so. But they're also doctors because they want to care. They're fundamentally people who touch more lives and save lives than you and me. I don't know if you read in Delhi, doctors were protesting, but they were conducting OPD on their streets. While this case was going on in Kolkata, while the vandalism was going on, did you know in the Kolkata hospital, the surgeries were yet going on? They were saving civilians' lives. They did not stop doing that. And that is the truth. Yes, they are human beings, but they are exemplar in terms of the care they give. Doctors, nurses, technicians across the board.
Let's talk about that Central Protection Act. I believe this thought was being floated in the parliament about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But it didn't become a law. It didn't go through. Again, this is a very amateur perspective. I think laws, acts, they need to be created in response to the reality of our times.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear about violence towards lawyers as much as you hear about violence towards doctors. I think that the Kolkata case is just a wake-up call for the rest of the country. So can you brief us a little bit on the Central Protection Act? And then can you also talk about the reality of whether or not you feel it'll actually go through this time, and will doctors get that added level of security within hospitals all over our country?
Yeah. So the act is very simple. The act is demanding and requesting security for medical professionals. The act is saying that in case as a civilian, you attack a medical professional, you will be prosecuted by the law, by the local governing body. And the 25 states already have some form of a law for protection of doctors. But in truest sense, it's not being really enforced by the local governments, right? So a central act blessed by the central government, by the parliament of this country, I think can go a long way in providing the security and the safety for these medical professionals, right? And I do believe that this time around, there has been more uproar than there has ever been.
Yeah.
Right? And rightfully so. Rightfully so. Yes, it was one poor victim and her family, but this has been a long time coming. A long time coming, right? Look at the mental state of medical professions in this country. If you look at the statistics of the number of attacks that happen, the amount of rapes that happen, 75% of doctors get attacked at least once in their professional life. Let that sink in. We all go to office. Imagine getting attacked, and not just verbally, physically as well, and going back to the same workplace again and again. But doctors have no choice. They factually have no choice. And that is why they do it, right? But this time around, and I'm hopeful that not just the Central Protection Act, my hope is that there should also be some laws around the amount of hours worked by medical professionals. And I spoke about it earlier as well. There is in pilots. Pilots have an entire norm amount of hours that they can work. I believe doctors should have the same as well. I think 36-hour shifts is inhuman. It affects productivity. It affects their mental state. They don't have proper infrastructure to live. That's number 2. Number 3 is stipend. Today, 70% of medical interns do not get paid. The medical colleges do not pay them, right? Resident salaries are getting delayed. These are individuals who have spent already 7-8 years in their professional life. They're 27, 28, 29 years old and are not getting paid on time. So I believe there's some kind of reform that's required for that as well. They are individuals who require salary as well to live their life, right? So if I had to request, I would say these are the 3 laws that require urgent intervention to provide our doctors and nurses some care.
My fear is that by the next week, the internet will begin to forget this case. That's just the nature of the internet, which is why I want to keep making content around this. I genuinely believe we need to hold the state government of Bengal responsible to some degree at least. There is some policies and infrastructure. Parallelly, I genuinely believe, actually, I feel PM Modi should speak about this violence against doctors angle. And third, on a very everyday basis, I think young Indians need to discourage other Indians from bad-mouthing doctors. Because I feel culturally something shifts there. When you abuse a doctor in privacy, when you say that, oh, dude, yeah, doctors are just in it for money, that culture needs to kind of stop to some degree. Because perhaps the violence that we see against doctors is an outcome of this internal doubt or internal remorse that some parts of the masses feel towards medical professionals.
I think it starts from us as a society having a more positive perception towards medical professionals, respecting their work. I think there should be movies, there should be TV shows, there should be content made about doctors, their lives, like how we do for athletes, like how we do for army professionals. And rightfully so, they deserve all the credit and all the adulation. But I believe doctors as well do. Nurses as well do. The heroic stories of these doctors, these nurses. Dr. Devi Shetty, an absolute legend. What he has done for heart surgery in this country, what he speaks for doctors, I think there's a lot of individuals like him who are adding so much to our lives, who are saving lives on a daily basis. Why aren't we glamorizing these individuals? And it starts from you and me talking to our friends positively, sharing our experiences, because change starts with one conversation and one conversation only. And today you rightly said, I think the internet is the best medium. And I think, thank you honestly from the bottom of my heart for taking this issue up on your podcast, because you have the distribution, you have the platform. It shows that you are trying to make an impact on our community in the positive way towards medical professionals. And I think that's a positive step, and hopefully other content creators and other platforms can do the same.
Yeah. Genuinely, there's a part of me that's doing this because I'm appalled by what happened. Secondly, I'm from a medical family, so I can understand everything you're saying. I've seen it like firsthand. I've seen a childhood so my mom was very young when she had me. There were so many moments during the time I was growing up that she would choose to go to the emergency ward to conduct a delivery. She's a gynecologist, and I'd be left back home. And I was told when I was very young that, hey, my career and my duty comes before my children as well. But you only understand these things when you're from a doctor family. Which is why when this has happened, when doctors are being maligned in this way, now that I've got this platform, I might as well use it to talk about the truth of India. Honestly, I want to make this a little bit of a shorter conversation than we usually do. We go on for like 2 hours. But it's just important to highlight the kind of things that you've highlighted. Because this will definitely reach most medical professionals in our country who can speak and understand English. But I hope that it goes beyond the medical fraternity as well. Is there any last notes you want to add to this particular conversation today?
So I'd like to also add, Ranveer, I think there's a recommendation from my side that I think we can bring about the medical health services, right? I think like how we have IPS, like how we have IAS, I think this initiative can go a very long way in bringing back honor to this profession, right? This was there before independence, right? And I think today is an optimum time to bring about it. And there are a couple of reasons, right, why I think it could be interesting. One is it can show a really long career trajectory to these medical professionals, right? We are seeing this brain drain happening, right? If there is a sense of, I think, honor brought to this profession, right, I think it can go a very, very long way for this profession. Right? Number one. Second is, today, I think as a community, we are not focusing on community medicine. We are not focusing on primary care. We're only focusing on, let the emergency case come, let's deal with it. Today, if you have these individuals in towns, in smaller cities, tier 3, tier 4 cities, there can be a lot of education with regard to community medicine. And let's understand, violence happens is because the patient and their family are super emotional, they are irate, they're not getting enough doctor time. This can help solve that. And finally, in private hospitals, doctors are expected to not just be clinicians, but also managers when they start their own practice. Today, I feel in government medical colleges, unfortunately, doctors are not being the opportunity to be managers. They are being clinicians. Whereas if we do this Indian medical services, I think there's an opportunity for them to learn managerial skills as well, which is super critical as they build their practice as well. Right? So I think this could be a very powerful and important initiative that could be taken on as well to bring back glory to the medical profession, which today I feel, unfortunately, because of these negative nuances of the media, today we are not able to celebrate our doctors as much as we should.
Do you see the total number of seats in medical colleges increasing with time, decreasing with time? Will they all be filled? How is this going to change the sentiment of our country, according to you?
So today, as I told you, right, there are 25 lakh people who take the NEET UG, 50,000 government seats, 50,000 private seats.
Why aren't there more?
The truth of the matter is, we need more hospitals and more government colleges, right? But it's important to understand this first, is that out of the 50,000 government seats, the priority for almost everybody is to take the government seat first. So the acceptance rate of these government seats are less than 0.5%. There are two reasons why people want to take it. One is because it is cheaper education. Second is the diversity of patients. The large number of patients that they see makes them, in some sense, a better doctor, right? Private seats can go north of 1 crore, the fees. 1 crore. Now, how many Indians do we know that can afford to pay 1 crore of fees a year? Right? But chalo, you take one of these two, you graduate from MBBS, you do a year of internship. Now, after your internship, you have a choice. Should you do the NEET PG or continue kind of deciding what you want to do? Most people take the NEET PG. Now, there are 1 lakh MBBS graduates, but only 64,000 PG seats, NEET PG seats. So now the balance 36,000 either have to wait around or apply the next year.
And I know people who've applied for 15 years in a row.
Exactly. The interesting thing here is, Ranveer, out of these 64,000 seats, all don't even get filled, although there are less seats. Why? Massive supply-demand deficit. Today, you could be an intern in Karnataka, keen to pursue pediatrics in Delhi. There are limited seats. So again, people will take a short 2 or short 3, sometimes go on for a couple more years. Then they start NEET PG. Then they start the residency after the NEET PG exam. Residency is the most critical time in a doctor's life. Residents are the backbone of the medical ecosystem. They are mentoring interns. They are supporting the seniors who are consultants. They basically run the hospital. Residents run the hospital. 36-hour shifts, 3 years, and they go for it. After these 3 years, and they've built some kind of speciality, the government requires them to do a rural bond. Now, I'd like to pause here. Which profession do you know has a rural bond besides medical professionals?
A rural bond meaning you have to serve time in a village hospital.
Exactly. Now, as an engineer, I'm an engineer. I was not told that you have to spend 2 years in a rural bond. Does a lawyer have to go and spend 2 years in a rural bond? Right? Here, and I'm all for, I think, bringing medicine to rural areas. But then let's give them better infrastructure. Let's give them a better work-life balance. Let's give them better hygiene. We're not giving them that. One more thing I'd like to say, right? After their residency, today, suppose you're a first-year resident and you're like, you know what, I'm 26 years old, I'm not enjoying this thing, medicine, yaar. Honestly, I'm not enjoying it. I want to leave medicine. I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be a content creator. I want to do something else. The government doesn't allow you to do that. You have to pay 30 lakhs residence bond to the government to get out of the seat. Now, a 17-year-old who has applied for NEET UG, in some sense, their entire life history has been written that for the next 50 years, you'll be a doctor, even if you want to leave it. Why? Because either the bond is there. Second is, the society will shun you. Ki bhai, isne seat chhod diya. Is that fair? Today, I've changed my career myself a couple of times. I'm an entrepreneur after 7-8 years in finance. But I got that opportunity. Maybe you got that opportunity as well. Maybe somebody else got that opportunity as well. But I don't think doctors get that opportunity. Now, after the rural bond, then they consider should they do super speciality. They're already 31, 32. By the time they really start their practice, they're only 34, 35. Right? And whereas engineers have already, their same classmates from school are flourishing and way ahead.
Difficult profession, man. That's the truth about medicine. There are certain upsides to being a doctor in terms of it's probably the most fulfilling job in the world 100%. On some degree. So I don't think that the doctors in our country are in any way discouraged from their own process of being a doctor in the long term. But this whole incident has definitely discouraged a lot of aspiring doctors. Like those 11th and 12th grade students who are figuring out what to do with their life. There's many who are fence sitters. Does this sway people in the opposite direction? I don't know, but I felt it was important to do this conversation. Is there any signing off note you had?
No,
today?
I think thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much for, I think, giving the platform to this topic. I think this is such a critical topic, I think, in today's day and age. And I think if we do not take care of our doctors and we do not protect them and we do not celebrate the doctors and nurses in our ecosystem, there could be a world where there unfortunately may not be many doctors left in this country. And so thank you so much for having me here.
No, bro. Oh, for sure. Very important conversation. Maybe before we let the audience go, we'll just quickly summarize the key points. For me, stronger rape laws is like the big outcome of this whole case. Secondly, a deep dive into exactly what's going on at R.G. Kar Government Medical College in Kolkata, where so many murky details are coming out. Apparently, politicians are involved. Apparently, the dean was involved. There's rumors of a drug racket, an organ trafficking racket. We don't even know the truth. The Supreme Court has taken it up, which is why we've not broken down the case too much in today's episode. Thirdly, the kind of laws that need to be passed for the security of doctors. The Central Protection Act needs to be passed. Fourth, better facilities in our existing hospitals, especially the government hospitals where the residents have to go through such a difficult time. Fifth, what you spoke about in terms of civil services, that civil services angle to being a doctor. Right? Do you want to repeat that?
Yeah, so I think what I mentioned is I think Indian medical services was there in India before independence. I think if it can be brought back today, it can bring a lot of honor back to the profession, and can also help a lot with community medicine, preventive care, which in some sense could support the tertiary care units, whereby reducing violence and the pressure on medical professionals.
Right.
Reduce brain drain as well, because there's a sense of honor in this profession as well, right? So I think there are a couple of real benefits on why I think the Indian medical service can add a lot of value to the entire ecosystem for patients, but also for medical professionals.
Right. I personally would love to see the leaders of our country talk about this case more, not just be a part of the morchas and the public showcasing of anger, but actually give out statements, talk about this case. There's definitely a political angle involved here. This is way more murkier than we were initially thought to believe. Justice for the doctor who was involved in this case, and justice for all of our country's doctors who have to go through any kind of violence due to their profession. I think that pretty much summarizes today's conversation. Abhijeet Kaji, thank you for speaking about this topic so openly. This is not the last conversation we'll have related to this topic, because I feel it's the job of the media to highlight what traditional media, news media is not highlighting. I'd also definitely love to mention to the audiences that the Kolkata doctors who reached out to us to be on the show said that they were denied interview opportunities by old media. I'm calling out old media here. What are you guys doing? I'm sure there is some angle of the higher ups involved. There's money involved here, but it's the job of YouTubers, content creators to bring out the truth. So let's see how this case pans out. But for now, thank you, bro. Really appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything you do for the medical community in our country. We need more people like you in India. So
thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the episode for today, ladies and gentlemen. The promise I make to you is that this is not our last podcast on this topic. We want to cover more angles about the Kolkata case as the case unfolds. It's much murkier and much more layered than we initially thought. The Supreme Court has taken up the case, and Team TRS is going to keep a keen eye on the case in order to speak up more about it through the medium of the Ranveer Show. Thank you for your support. Thank you for listening in. Do spread the word, and let's ensure that not just the doctor who was murdered, but every single doctor in our country gets the justice that they deserve, gets the protection that they deserve, and gets the adulation that they deserve. I salute every single medical professional in our country. Thank you for what you do for us. And I sincerely hope that through content pieces just like this, we're able to change the reality of India one step at a time. Lots of love. Thank you for listening in. Team TRS will be back very soon.